Longplay 4K Review, Homefront. From the very announcement of Homefront, the developers from KO's studios contrasted their brainchild Call of Duty. They said that Call of Duty is pseudo-realistic nonsense, but Homefront is a completely different conversation. Here we are waiting for a very believable story of simple American soldiers, without gloss and special effects. Well, let's check how it really turned out. If you're going to San Francisco, the near future of the USA according to KO's looks bleak. Kim Jong-il, the head of North Korea, has passed away and his son Kim Jong-un has taken his place. North Korea united with South Korea, and in 2027, the Great Korean Republic briefly thought of pulling the United States under itself. This, in fact, is where the story of a simple American soldier Jacobs begins. To be exact, not a simple one, but a former Air Force pilot, who was lucky enough to join the ranks of guerrillas from the city of Montrose. From the first minutes of the adventure, the creators try to show us the horrors of the occupation. Angry Asians drag the protagonist out of a tainted apartment, put him on a school bus and take him to reformatory labor. We turn to the window and see some poor people being beaten with rifle butts by Korean scoundrels, their parents being shot in front of a child. It's not a bad start. Add heat and you will get a convincing picture depicting the nightmares of a brutal regime. But they don't turn up the heat. During the 3-hour single we will witness a couple more such scenes, no more. The characters of Jacob's partners are not revealed at all. Just now our sister-in-arms Rihanna was weeping over the corpses of her loved ones, and half an hour later she is shooting yellow-faced enemies as if nothing had happened. In addition, everything that happens in Homefront is alien to us, Russian people. After all, most of the way our partisans spend in a rather detailed recreated American suburb. No wonder that the Western press received the game more warmly than the European press. I think that all these slender rows of two-storied houses, broken garden gnomes in the yards and abandoned fields make about the same impression on the native inhabitants of the USA as the view of destroyed Moscow from Metro 2033 does on us. Finally, the half-dead drama is completed by the idiotic Radio Liberty, which turns on its propaganda shuffle during downloads. The original pathos in the most uncomfortable form is supplied by Furies. If your ears suddenly bleed, remember, we warned you. Not Call of Duty? Really? Okay, we think, since there's no depth to it, maybe simple story doesn't play like COD? Indeed, when the authors say that their brainchild will be naturalistic, you hope for a corresponding process. Something like Karma 2 immediately comes to mind, only on a smaller scale. A small number of enemies, tactics, death from one accurate shot, in general, you understand. But even here there is a deception. In front of us is a typical shooting gallery with dozens, hundreds of stupid opponents' ducklings, who were hastily trained to hide behind shelters and throw grenades. You can't find any differences from Call of Duty with a magnifying glass, except that the weapons look and sound worse. American guerrillas, of course, are good, but it's not very believable that each of them can finish off 1,000 or 2 Koreans practically alone. So the realism in Homefront was never there. Unlike Modern Warfare and Black Ops, however, there are very few spectacular scenes and interesting situations here, and some of them are shamelessly stolen from Infinity Ward. For example, the sortie to the camp of aggressively minded survivalists is exactly like the mission in Pripyat from MW, but badly staged and dragged out. Tedious flights on a combat helicopter and meetings at stationary guns, of course, are also available. How many times can it be already? Homefront, Fuel of War. However, the single-player campaign is not the main thing, as Homefront's defenders claim. Well, maybe multiplayer will really pull the game out of the swamp of passable projects. Organized network entertainment as usual, we participate in battles, grow in levels, open new automatic rifles and machine guns, as well as skills and other useful things. For us prepared 5 classes templates, but no one prevents to completely change them and rename them. In short, the system is about the same as in Modern Warfare 2. Teamwork, by the way, is stuck not far from Call of Duty. You won't meet any medics or engineers in Homefront, all by themselves. Is KO's creation able to stack up against the competition? Unfortunately, no. For example, in the variety of unlockable perks, multiplayer fun is significantly inferior to Black Ops. There is a catastrophic lack of guns, there is no extravaganza of patches, nicknames, camouflage and other nice little things. And there are only two modes, team combat and territory control. It's a little too much content for an action movie, emphasizing on network battles, isn't it? Homefront also tries to beat Battlefield, Bad Company 2. Probably, it looks decent on this field? Alas, it fails here as well. Although the maps are really noticeably larger than in Black Ops, the scale is still not the same as in Battlefield. And there is no destructibility, the main trump card of BC2. Just imagine how the equipment feels in such conditions, if we also take into account that some locations are urban. Here a tank stuck between 2mm thick fences is a common sight. And that's partly why local vehicles come here on a bird's license, they don't appear on the base. We can only, having paid a certain amount of points received for kills or other useful actions, revive, for example, in a jeep. And participants of battles rarely do not squander earned points on cheap body armor, grenade launchers or UFs. As a result, many victories are won exclusively by infantry and remote-controlled little guys. No one needs expensive and clumsy machines. The result is sad, but predictable. KOs wanted to make their COD, and decided to sell it under the guise of the naturalistic history of the US occupation. It turned out, as you can see, not very well. If Homefront is worth buying, it's only for the sake of multiplayer battles. However, we would advise you to save your hard-earned money for something more interesting. At least for Crysis 2, its authors at least had enough strength to come up with something of their own, and not only borrow ideas of their colleagues. Pros: network mode is curious. Cons: the first 2 hours, secondary single, lousy plot, filled with pathos.